Case number 10 revolves around what is done with the large amount of animals that are being used for different research purposes once they are no longer needed by the researchers. These animals, mainly primates, were born and raised in captivity and only know life inside a research lab. The most common practice used to handle this dilemma is euthanasia, or putting the animals down. Some people believe that a better and more ethical solution would be turning the retired primates over to sanctuaries where they can live the rest of their lives in nature, experiencing things they never had a chance to in their lab lives, like feeling the sun's warmth or mingling with other species. Sanctuaries like the one Bush, a retired primate from Princeton University lives at, costs the school around $2,500 a year to fund his care. People argue that the money the school spends could go toward more important things. Another option that has been proposed is allowing the animals to be adopted. However, there is no system currently in place that would monitor the living conditions in sanctuaries or adoptive homes. Because of this issue, euthanasia is still considered the best option. Even though animal testing and research is a controversial topic that is ethically debated, the main problem in question for this case is whether or not it is morally acceptable to kill these animals once the research is completed, even if it is done in a humane way. We know this is a central problem within this case from a natural law theorist's perspective because the question of whether or not it is in human nature to kill an animal would not necessarily arises. Natural law theory relies on the concept of human nature to rule what is good or bad, so in order to determine the rightness of euthanasia, they must first find out if the process is to be considered natural or unnatural within the barriers of human nature. This is a main question to an egoist as well because the opposition of euthanasia supports the concept of altruism, or doing something solely for someone else's sake, which egoists believe is impossible. Egoists say that if you act with your own interest in mind to gain something you want, the action is morally good and acceptable. If the researchers fight to send a primate to a sanctuary to live the normal life of an animal instead of being put down, they are doing so to improve the remainder of the primate's life while seeming to gain no real improvement to their own lives. Egoists will have to determine if the anti-euthanasia beliefs are truly altruistic or if they're fueled by pursuing one's self-interest, like avoiding a guilty conscience or not wanting to lose something they care about. The question of if euthanizing research animals once they're no longer of use to us is an important one for consequentialists to think over. Consequentialism claims that we should strive to maximize happiness throughout the world as a whole, and actions done to do so are morally right. Consequentialism also tells us we need to take other species' suffering into consideration equally, which is something natural law theory and egoism don't touch on. Consequentialists will need to decide if the happiness of these animals and the happiness of those who want to see them finally live a good life outside of a lab outweighs the happiness of those whose diseases or illnesses could be cured if the money needed to care for the animals when they retire was used to fund future research. Let's circle back to the natural law theorists to get their opinion on the case.
Let's assume that it's accepted within natural law theory that preserving life and not killing other living beings unless necessary is something found in human nature. With other options available that would spare these animals and keep them alive, why would we not utilize them? A popular pro-life claim is the argument for humanity, which states that it is wrong to kill an innocent human being and that abortions are wrong because fetuses are innocent. Could this argument apply to these primates if the word human was replaced with animal? These animals who were born and raised in captivity are mostly innocent. Those who attack handlers are an exception. Just because they're not human, does that make it okay to kill them even with their innocence intact? As stated in the case description, many of the animals bond with humans, and it is safe to say that the humans bond with the animals as well. If a human who's bonded with a research animal must then defy their personal nature and kill something they care about, the euthanasia of these animals would be morally wrong.
Unfortunately, like many other possible answers to ethical questions, this answer is not completely valid and cannot fully satisfy the question from every perspective, and it even runs into issues within natural law theory. The concept of human nature and what it consists of is still heavily debated, and another natural law theorist could formulate an argument claiming that preserving life is actually not part of human nature, which would effectively render the argument previously stated as invalid. Because natural law theory relies on the concept of human nature, and human nature itself along with what is a part of it cannot be defined unanimously, trying to answer this question from a natural law theorist's point of view will only end with a conclusion that can be debated and invalidated, no matter what that conclusion may be.